Hello, hello. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking time out to talk with me today. So you and I
Okay.
had decided that we were gonna discuss um, contracting business, and I know that you sent me over a couple of really cool um, topics already to be discussed. Just some basic questions that you had already had. And what makes you interested in contracting business?
Well, actually, I when I heard on one of our calls that you were a contractor, I realized that I do not know any women contractors. And so I know it's been a few months, but I was like, I really want to hear her story, see how she got involved. I have thought about not contracting, but more of a getting a like a builder's license, just so that I can have a understanding of some things that I am so naive about when with regards to homes. And I'm a researcher by nature, and so a lot of times I won't move forward on certain things if I don't have all the answers. And so I thought that would be a cool way for me to kind of well round myself when it comes to real estate. But for the most part, I really just wanted to hear, your story, how you got involved. Um, and like I said, I don't think I know any other women contractors or
Oh,
builders. So
okay.
it's cool. You're in I feel like you're in a good field and certainly outnumbered by men. But I think it's important to kind of maybe share with someone else who might have thought of it and just felt like it was a world that they may not have been welcome in. So
Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, how I got started in it is I worked for a licensed general contractor in his office for 5 years, basically doing paperwork, and I learned a little bit about the hands-on part of it. We would go to some job sites and he would, kind of train us on how to QC the work and just showing us different things. And then I actually got an opportunity to partner up with another business owner, and we started a property preservation business. And we started out in Toledo doing hazard claims, which is basically insurance scopes of
okay.
work. And those are like the larger job types where we're doing electrical, plumbing, roofing, and total rehabs on properties. And so I really liked it, and I was fortunate enough to meet some very quality people who encouraged me as I started to get more familiar with the business.
Hmm.
Hey, Adrian, you should think about getting your residential builder's license for a couple different reasons. One, to learn more about the business, obviously, because I'm already involved in the business and making money doing it. And two, for credibility and to really know how things should be done as opposed to just letting someone tell you how they should be done. So
Exactly.
I decided to go ahead and get my residential builder's license. And what it entails is 60 classroom hours of study, and then you have to take a state exam, which has two parts: the legal part, which is one portion of the test, and the practical part. And
Hmm.
I won't lie to you, the test was extremely challenging. You
Hmm.
really do have to know a lot of information. You have to know parts of a roof, how to calculate up how much cement you need to pour a driveway, how to read blueprints, different parts of framing a house, knowing how to read a diagram, figuring out story problems. You have to
Hmm.
really be able to practically apply the knowledge that you have. So it was definitely a very, very challenging test, but well worth it in my opinion, because I can go to any county in the state of Michigan and I can pull my own permits. And it's also afforded me the opportunity to meet some great people, some, good licensed contractors, and to increase my property preservation, businesses as well, because having that residential builder's license allows us to offer a lot of different services to our clients.
Hmm.
So when you have the residential builder's license, you're able to do the hazard claims slash insurance scopes for the clients, which are the bigger paying jobs. We also do property preservation. We do, occupancy checks. We do REO work. We do evictions. We pretty much do anything and everything that the clients need us to do. But primarily we're working on foreclosed properties, properties in various stages of foreclosure for mortgage bill service clients. So that's just a little bit of how I got involved with it. And basically, in my opinion, there's no downside to getting it for really for anybody that's involved in the business because for me, like it just gave me another opportunity to, add more value to like my clients that I was already dealing with. And even now, with some of the clients that I have now that I'm a licensed realtor, I'm letting them know, hey, listen, we have a licensed realtor on staff. So if you need someone to help you with marketing the properties or listing the properties, or even doing BPOs, we can offer those services as well. So it's just generating, more income for the entire network and, increasing the skills that you already have. I mean, I do think that sometimes it can be challenging when you're, in a all pretty much predominantly male dominated, industry because you do have some people who really don't believe that you're credible or don't think that you know what you're talking about. So there are some challenges there, but I think the good outweighs the bad because of what you're able to offer and the value that you bring when you're dealing with clients. Because even when we're going to look at houses, I'll automatically see things like we went to a house yesterday and I'm like, okay, it's pointing out to the client, like, we're going to need an extender on this gutter up here because the water is just pouring out and going straight onto the roof, which if you're not used to looking at stuff like that, you really wouldn't see that or really wouldn't, point that out to your client. It would probably just kind of go over your head.
So, quick question, Adrian. When you mentioned property preservation, so for those who don't know what that is, like me, what exactly is property preservation?
Well, property preservation is services that we provide to mortgage fill service clients. Like some mortgage fill service clients include, but are not limited to, like Safeguard, Guardian Asset Management, MCS. Those are some of the bigger companies. SMS, even Open Door is kind of somewhat of a property preservation company. So you go into the properties that are, in various stages of foreclosure or even REO properties. Sometimes we'll get those and we'll do, once the bank or the client takes over the property, they'll call us and they'll say, hey, look, we need you to go in and do initial services, which includes but is not limited to a lock change, an initial secure, which we might winterize the property, we might do a trash out. If it's in season, we might do a grass cut, we may do a spring cleanup, a fall cleanup, trim bushes away from the property, just basically basic maintenance of the interior and exterior of the property to give the property the appearance that it's being maintained, by a company, and then we'll post up signs letting them know, hey, look, this is the company that's managing the property. That way, if something happens, like, God forbid the property gets vandalized, or maybe somebody drives by it and is interested in purchasing it, they have, someone to contact in regards to that. So that's basically what property preservation is. And that's how I actually got into like the contracting business as an entrepreneur, like back in 2015.
Mhm. Okay, nice. All right, so another question for you. Did you find any like boundaries or roadblocks when you were trying to get in to the field, even though you were already working in it? When you got to the point of getting your builder's license, did you find any roadblocks that kind of came up for you?
Um, some of the clients that I've worked with in the past have certain requirements
Mhm.
that can be a little bit stringent, but for me, any type of challenge that I face, I feel like I like a challenge and I'm just going to work through it and I'm just going to work around it by any means necessary. So I just have to be creative about how I choose to, overcome that obstacle or that challenge. I mean, obviously there are challenges. I've had some ups and downs in the business as any business owner has. Good help is hard to find, obviously, for any entrepreneur. Finding subcontractors that are good quality subcontractors, honest, that are going to do good work, that are going to be professional and, practice professional communication. that's always been a challenge from day one, when you have jobs, because I'm what they call a armchair contractor. Like, I don't physically do the work myself. I mean, I have, like, when I first started, I was able to, go out in the field and learn a lot of things. Like, I learned how to do lock changes and winterizations, and actually trained under, another contractor to do those things, because I feel like, how can I expect someone else to do those things if I don't know how to do those things?
Right.
And I've, go into houses and do assessments for my clients and things like that, because I'm obviously very detail orientated, and that's what you need if you're going to be putting together a property condition report, letting your client know, hey, look, these are the things that we think you need to do to make your property more marketable.
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, there have been some definite challenges, especially in regards to dealing with other contractors, people feeling like you're not credible, or not really liking the way that we do things, because obviously for us and our company, we have standard operating procedures and things that we do. We like to be very organized, and a lot of contractors are not very organized. They might want to kind of do things a little differently, or, like, for example, we use cost estimator software to determine what a client is willing to pay for a certain type of repair. So
Mhm.
I'll just take, like, gutters, for example. I know that the majority of my clients are willing to pay $4.70 per linear foot of gutter. But then you may have a contractor who's like, oh, well, I charge $7. Okay, well, that's cool that you charge $7, but my clients are willing to pay $4.70.
Mhm.
So, you do have those challenges. And then obviously, in any business that you're doing and you're dealing with different people and different personalities, dealing with personalities is obviously a challenge in itself. I don't care what kind of business you're doing. So yeah, there
Exactly.
definitely have been some challenges there. And then, of course, finding good office staff, because I've, first started out, doing a lot of stuff myself, and then as the companies grew and I started getting more clients, and we started expanding and, going into different states and doing the work. I obviously, you can't be a one man or one woman show. So I had to, go through different people, try different people out. Some people work, some people don't, and obviously, even with my personality type, because I'm very direct and very assertive, sometimes that might rub somebody the wrong way.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a lot of moving parts that go into, running this type of a business, for sure.
Wow. That's interesting. So how many people do you have on staff? Is it, I know you said you mentioned like a secretary or administrator. Then how is your business structured, or how would someone structure um, or utilize the builder's license when they have a, with regards to having a company?
Well, there's so many different ways for you to, make the builder's license work for you. I mean, like, for example, you could use your builder's license to help potential buyers with the 203K loans,
Mm-hmm.
to do the work on those houses. Like, let's say you had a buyer, and they, had a house and it needed approximately $15,000 worth of work. You could use your builder's license to assist them. And that's how I was, familiar with that 203K loan type. You could assist them with that. And to me, it's a very easy process, because number one, you're dealing with the bank, so your money is guaranteed. You're going to get paid. It's not like you're dealing with a homeowner and you've got to, wheel and deal with them and hope that they've got the money to pay you. You're dealing with a
Right.
bank. Your money is guaranteed. Because if not, then, I mean, obviously you can put a lien on the property, and that's a whole nother, you know, ball of worms and problems for that client. They don't want that. They want smooth processes. So you could
Right.
use that. You could do, new builds, which I've never personally done a new build before.
Mm-hmm.
You could work with homeowners doing, home remodeling. You could manage subcontractors. You could do property preservation, which is what I like. I like property preservation because my clients send the work to me, and we basically, if we go out to a property, because of the processes that I already have in place, pretty much we do have a very high rate of return when we go and we do assessments of the properties. We do get a lot of bid approvals, so the company has, been able to have some longevity and be successful, for quite some years, we started in 2015 and then it's just grown, from there. As far as the internal working of the company, we have an office manager and she works remotely. I monitor what they do through an app called Time Doctor, where you
Oh,
can see, what they're doing and monitor, their activities because obviously every business owner you want to make sure that you're getting, your money's worth and that
mhm.
people aren't just goofing off pretending to work because I'm not going to pay anybody to pretend to work. Sorry. And then I have a subcontractor liaison and I've got three teams of processors.
Okay.
So we do have that, and then we've got multiple teams of contractors in Michigan, Ohio, Florida, and we were working in Texas, but once the pandemic hit, we found it very difficult to keep quality crews. So
Yeah.
we ended up letting Texas go, but I still do have, contractors that are in our network that we can call on if we get jobs down there. And we have, you know, connects with about maybe 11 different other states that we're not currently doing work, but we have, crews that are in those states that have either onboarded with us or made contact with us, and we have them, in our network if we decide to go to those states and possibly do work.
Okay. Now, in when you're operating in different states, do you have to have a license in that state as well, or is it more of a coordinating the work?
It depends on what you're doing. If we were going to do a hazard claim, then I would obviously have to have someone on staff. If we were like required to pull permits, like let's say we got a roof job in Florida, I'm going to
Mhm.
need somebody who can pull a permit down there, which,
Okay.
I do have, licensed contractors down there as well that work in the network. And, in every state, if you're going to be doing hazard claims or insurance scope work that's going to require permits, like if you're doing mechanicals,
Mhm.
HVAC, electrical, plumbing, you probably 9 times out of 10, depending on the city that you're in and their requirements, you are probably going to need a permit. Um,
Okay.
but it just depends. But if we're just doing property preservation, like we're, doing some exterior work, cutting down some trees or, some basic painting or something like that, then we probably will not need someone to pull a permit because those are just basic things that they're not going to require a permit to be pulled for.
Okay. That's nice. Um, okay, so I guess we could maybe switch and get into the mind of a home buyer that's with you as a realtor, and the inspection report comes back. And
Well,
what are
the inspection report always freaks everybody out because
yes, yes.
um, the holy grail of like, okay, this is everything that is going on with this particular house. But what I do is I try to calm and soothe the people that I'm working with and let them know, listen, this is going to be something where, obviously if it's something major like a foundation issue or, a huge plumbing issue, huge electrical issue, or the roof is about to cave in, obviously we've got an issue. But if
Right.
it's just basic things, then you have to calm them and let them know like this is just basically a checklist of things that eventually will have to be addressed at this house. No house is going to be perfect. The house you live in, the house I live in, if a home inspector came to my house or your home, they would probably have a list of things that
A
we
lot.
need to do here as well. So
Right.
even if you have a house that's newly built from the ground, I've gone into newly built homes and thought to myself like, okay, I don't like how this looks. This is sloppy, you
Hmm.
know. So every house is going to have their own issues, but I try to talk them through it and explain it in a way where they're not freaking out and they're not feeling like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to find a different house. I don't want this house anymore. There's too many things going on because if you got a house that was built in like the 1950s, of course there's going to be some things that normal upkeep of a house, normal maintenance, like if your hot water tank is over 6 7 years old, eventually you're probably going to have to replace it. That's just common. With
Right.
your furnace, the same thing. So I try to get clients in the mindset of not letting the report freak them out and looking at it as a tool to assist you with what's going to need to be done, eventually. And obviously, every house requires maintenance and upkeep. Like, this year, I want to do like some different stuff with my landscaping, and I'm kind of already thinking about, I mean, that's just normal. Any homeowner, you're going to want to, constantly be making upgrades and doing different things with your property. I think that's normal.
Okay.
So that's
That's
how I
good.
try to handle it with the clients is I try to just calm them and let them know like, hey, look, part of the process, it's for your benefit because if we did find something major that was wrong, like a foundation issue,
Hmm.
then that gives us the option of saying, do we still want to move forward with this or do we want to go in a different direction?
Hmm. I remember when I was looking for my home and we went to this one house. I love this house. I really wanted this house. And the realtor, we walked in and she's sitting on the steps and she's like, this is a no-go. So we went to the basement. There was water down there. Now, me not knowing, much about homes, I still don't. But I was thinking, well, we can just drain it. We can, get a snake and snake it out. We can fix it. So when you been in a situation like that where you have had walked into doing a home tour, there's water on the floor. Would you suggest that they not move forward with a house like that because obviously water, mold, things like that?
Um, it would depend on the circumstances and it would depend on because like for me, the basement in Michigan is my favorite room in the house because that's where all the money is, that's where the electrical is, that's where the furnace is, that's where the hot water tank is. It would depend on the situation. Are we able to walk down there and physically like walk on the floor, or is it like 5 feet of water?
Mhm.
It would just depend. If I walk into a house and there's 5 feet of water, which that actually did happen to me as a contractor, I went to a house to do an assessment for a client,
Mhm.
and I walked in and I almost like I was like I it took my breath away because I've never been inside of a house that had that much water in it, and you could smell it when you walked in too.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing of it is it would depend on the circumstances and what was going on there. It could be, any number of things. It could be a sump pump failure. It could be a leaky pipe. I would probably want to do a little investigating before I just told my client, a big fat no.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously we would get a home inspection and then I have, licensed plumbers and, people that I work with that I probably would say, even after the home inspection, like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you come over here and look at this house with me? I
Mhm.
have a buyer and I just want to, make sure that, this is a good investment for them, even after the home inspector gave their report, because it doesn't hurt to get a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion because,
Right.
one head works better than, two heads work better than one. So it would just depend on the circumstances. But if my client really likes the house, I would say, let's see what we can do. And maybe we can use that as some leverage with
Mhm.
the listing agent. Like, hey, oh my God, like, que horror, we went down here, it was filled with water. My client's freaking out, but they really want this house. What can we do? Let's work together. Let's make this happen.
Mhm.
Use it as a bargaining tool or chip for my client to maybe get some money knocked off the price, or maybe get some concessions, maybe see if, if it's something that can be fixed, if the seller is willing to, either pay for it in full or split the cost with, my buyer, or even if it was my seller, hey, look, I got, a plumber, I can call him, we can see how much it's going to run you to get this fixed. If we
Mhm.
had an offer on the table, maybe, the buyer would split it with us, try to save them some money. So I would definitely try to work the situation out. I don't feel like just because there's water on the floor that that's an automatic no. And I wouldn't freak my client out or like crush my client's dream and be like, no, like you said, you really wanted the house. So I would say, okay, Chandra, let's be, objective about this. Let's do some investigating. Let's ask the listing agent, hey, did you know that there was, water on the floor? Is there an issue with the plumbing? Ask for the disclosures. And of course, I would look to see if, maybe there was a leaky pipe or a pipe had burst, because we do have, like the change of the seasons.
Right.
So it could be something like that. Where like, okay, we had change in the seasons and, the pipe burst, or there was just, some additional water pressure from somewhere. So I wouldn't just automatically assume the worst. I would try to work the situation out in my client's best interest for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So just one more question regarding the inspection. So we mentioned plumbing, we mentioned foundation. Are there any other areas that you would um, give a greater concern for, or do give more questions for the seller if it came back on on an inspection report?
The areas of concern for me would be roof because, everything rises and falls on the roof. If the roof is faulty, then, we've got a serious issue. The
Hmm.
roof, the electrical, the plumbing, and then the HVAC system, because those are all things that can, create a lot of expenses for a buyer
Yeah.
or a seller. So those would be things that I would definitely be very concerned with.
Hmm.
But anything cosmetic, absolutely not, because that's an easy fix. So those would be the four areas. Oh, and the foundation, of course. Foundation, I would say roof and foundation are like number one, number two. Then I would say plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. That would be like the top five things of concern, in my opinion. That we went into a house and maybe I saw like, okay, the AC unit is, really rusted out and busted looking, something like that. I would definitely want to, do a little bit more research on it.
Okay. I see we're over like by 2 minutes. Do I have time for one more question to
Of
you?
course, of
Okay.
course.
So, I think I sent it to you by text as well. With regards to maintenance, I don't know if you've seen posts or, people that are fearful in buying a home. The concern I've heard the most is that there's going to be so much home maintenance, compared to living in an apartment. Are we going to be able to afford it? Like, what type of home maintenance issues or things that people should think about that would kind of ease their concern when it comes to buying a home?
Well, I mean, I think that there's so many different, opportunities out there for us to learn how to do things ourselves to save money.
Okay.
Um, you know, if cost is a concern and you're not really wanting to hire someone out, then you and your husband, or if you got a brother, like I have a brother, I'm always asking my brother for stuff. Like, hey, can you come help me? Hey, I got an idea. I want to run this by you. So there's always more than one way to skin a cat. If money is a concern, then hey, you might be able to go to Home Depot, take one of those classes, or even go on YouTube and learn something. Like there are videos on everything and anything you could think of. Like I've watched videos on French drain systems, installing boilers, things that are of interest to me as a contractor. So even if you've got something going on at your house and you're like, oh man, that's probably going to be expensive, you can always, watch a YouTube video or even finance it if you wanted to. Like there's companies out there, like even with through my company, we have financing available through Interbank. So let's say someone wanted to do, rehab their kitchen. Okay, they want to do, they want to go all out, we can offer them, financing. So I would just say if you're concerned about money, to do your research and to, learn as much about it as you can. And there are options out there. But the upside is that whatever money you're paying out, you're paying it towards your home, you own it, and you're building equity as opposed to, okay, I'm living in an apartment and I'm paying, $1,000 a month. Okay, that's $12,000 a year that you're paying for someone else's mortgage. So, I mean, and even if you had like a major repair that you had to do, you may be able to, get it done through Home Depot and just make payments on it. Or, there's so many different options out there. I wouldn't let that be a deterrent. But of course, people fear what they don't know. That's why we're here to help educate them and to kind of, shorten that information gap so that they know that, hey, I'm a homeowner, you're a homeowner. Like I've never had any type of major issue at my house where I was like, oh my God, I'm like, this is just so much. Because I'll learn about it myself. I'll make sure, I mean, I'll have even had people come out, and course, I didn't tell them who I was. I just acted like I was a regular consumer and have them like, do a presentation for me. Like, how much would this cost? How much would that cost? Just kind of feel them out, just kind of ask questions. I mean, you can do that as a consumer. You can do that. Or even if you just had a realtor come out and say, hey, how much would you list this house for? People do it all the time, so it's just about educating yourself. Knowledge is power. So that's how I would handle that.
That's great. I'm sure that would ease some anxiety in the home buying process, and even the home ownership process, because a lot of people may not have grew up in a home where their parents own the home. And so they haven't been taught a lot. I remember my air conditioner went out last summer, and it took me forever just to hire someone because I did have that fear. Like, are they going to overcharge me? I have no idea what they're talking about. I even had one contractor, he actually got upset with me. He left. He didn't even send me an estimate because he was trying to upsell me and on different things
On
like
what, like a different unit, like getting a different unit?
on the warranty for the device, and he also was trying to scare me as well because he I had already told him I had a couple other estimates, and one of the things he said was, these other companies, what if someone gets hurt in your house and they don't have insurance? I mean, he was going on things that I'm like, okay. I'm okay. I have to get back to work. Can you get to how much this is going to cost me? He was so upset with me. So I think having that license, and I love that you have that license, and I could just about imagine like what when someone's presenting to you, what's going through your mind because you know a lot already, and they probably couldn't upsell you, right?
Well, I
So,
mean, I never tell them who I am. I always just pretend like I'm just a regular consumer.
hmm
Or even if I'm just talking to another contractor and they're like, telling me how much this is going to cost, how much that's going to cost. Okay, well, this is what my client is willing to pay. If we can work together on it, that's cool. Everything isn't for everybody. It may not be a good fit for your company. Like if my client can pay 2,000 and you want to charge 4,000, well, that's probably not going to work for my client. And I'm sorry. Maybe we can do something on another project, or perhaps maybe your skill set and your prices are just out of my client and in my price range, and that's okay. Even with the gentleman who was upset with you, like there's a certain way that you have to deal with consumers and present information to people, and scare tactics and trying to be overbearing is a total turnoff to any consumer. I don't care who you are. If you're trying to like bully me into getting something that I know that I really don't have the money for, or that I genuinely believe I don't need, then we're going to have a disconnect. Now, if you can present it to me in a way where you can show that you're adding value and this is something that's going to benefit me, perhaps I may think about it. But you're not going to get anywhere with me trying to bully me. That's not going to happen. So,
hmm
and especially too the dynamic of like, I'm probably sure the salesperson was a guy, right?
Of course, yep. And he was throwing out tips, and well, all while he was inspecting and getting measurements and whatnot. And at first the tips were great, but then I could tell like he's thinking, "You're a woman, you don't know," because he would ask me questions, and obviously I don't know the answer to certain things, like what type of something he asked me about the air conditioner, and I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea, but why are you asking me this? Are you trying to prove that you know more than me and I should just take you at your word? So it's kind of intimidating, I think, sometimes as a woman when you don't know. Like you say, knowledge is power. When you don't know. So if you're listening to this and you've thought about having a builder's license, look at Adrian. This is a great inspiration because it kind of removes the fear of people taking advantage of you as well. So this was
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too that, even if it was something that I didn't know a lot about, probably prior to having the person out, the advice that I would say is do your own research. Like know what kind of furnace, know what kind of AC you have, know if it's, 3 tier, 2 tier, how many square feet your house is. I would do my own research. I would
Mhm,
have, questions for that person so they would know that I did do my own research, and be a more informed consumer. Like for
mhm,
example, I had an HVAC, a contractor. This guy's been doing contracting work since before I was even born, and I asked him his opinion on like HVAC system checks, and
mhm,
he said in his opinion they were a scam because he's like, yeah, they'll probably like come in and maybe like do something to your system and try to upsell you on something. And I said, so what would you suggest to consumers to make sure that their HVAC system is running, effectively and efficiently? He said, yeah, I would change out the filters pretty often. And I said, well, how often would you change them? He said, oh, probably like once a month, and that's what I do. So I change out, my filters for my AC unit, not my AC unit, but my furnace, like once a month, and even for the houses that I manage, because we also manage properties as well,
mhm.
which is the benefit of having that real estate sales license and being a builder. That's like a whole nother business.
Right.
um we, the property that we manage, we have the filters for the furnace changed every month just to ensure that the system is running properly and it'll, give the system some longevity. So, even if you have a friend that's a contractor, asking that person, hey, what's your opinion on this? Even for like plumbing, like down in the basement, you've got your utility sink and you've got your little, drain coming off your washing machine. I have like a sock on there so that when lint and stuff comes out, it'll get caught up in that sock instead of going down my drain. Um, you know, to prevent the drain from clogging up, things like that. So there's always different little tips and things that you can learn from somebody else that's, maybe in that field, that you might even have as a friend or just an acquaintance or, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think the for just go back to that situation. I the first contractor that came out gave a very nice, respectable estimate, and so I had all the measurements. I knew exactly what type of air conditioner I had before. I knew that one was really old. I knew it wasn't going to last. They were honest in their opinion of what needed to be done. The old one couldn't be fixed. It was so old. I'm not gonna lie. It was really old. It needed to be. It just needed to be tossed. So I had those with me, but when he started asking me very technical questions to kind of educate me, I just knew it was downhill from there. It was downhill from there. So yeah, yeah. But this was great, Adrienne. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to get to hear more about your story. I've been wanting to hear about it, like I say, for the last few months, but just never got a chance to speak with you. So this was really great.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me. And of course, like we decided we were going to stay on our production schedule with staying consistent with our content. And of course,
Right.
I never ever get tired of talking shop. I do love, what we do. And, anytime, somebody, if you know somebody that has a question, if I can be of service, then, that's great. I don't ever mind sharing, information or, having someone run an idea by me. Hey, what do you think about this? Or would you do this? Or how would you handle this? I'm definitely very open to helping anyone that, wants my help.
Hmm. Good.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. If you guys like the video, you like the content, please like, subscribe, share. We really appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot. Till next time.
Thank you.